Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Homecoming 2022 at Ross-Ade Stadium. The Purdue Boilermakers and the Florida Atlantic Owls ready to kick this one off at 7:30 tonight. The Boilermakers coming in off a really disappointing loss last week to the Fighting Orange of Syracuse. They come in at 1-2, while Florida Atlantic has a 2-2 record coming in. Tim Newton, Kelly Kitchel in the middle, Pete Quinn on the far side, and we'll start with the news that you've all been waiting for. Pete and Kelly are both here tonight. Oh, wait a minute. That's probably not what you're looking for. Yes, there is an injury, a significant injury to the Boilermakers. It appears that Aiden O'Connell, the leading passer in the Big Ten, leader in total offense, is not going to play tonight because of an injury he suffered last week in the game against Syracuse. So it looks like probably Austin Burton will get the start. We may see Michael Lima. We may see Brady Allen. We may see all three at some point, but it appears unlikely that we'll see Aiden O'Connell tonight. There may be a couple of other injuries and departures as well. We'll find that out here shortly, and so you can find out on the radio broadcast. But Kitch, you've been through this before, I'm sure, in your career where a key player has been out. How do you compensate for it?
Next man up. I mean, it's always next. That's the life of college football, and you got to be ready when your number's called. And Austin Burton's been here. This is his third year. He's been in the system. He understands. I assume he'll be the guy to get the nod. We saw him against Indiana State, went in first, and when they started rotating quarterbacks in, and I'll tell you, what I liked about him in the spring was he looked like a different guy. He was in control of the offense when I watched him in the spring game and all through spring practices. He looked like a different guy than we saw the 2 years prior. So I'm kind of excited to see him. I mean, obviously I want Aiden on the field. Right. I mean, but when you have an injury like that, you can't sulk. You can't let it affect everything. You got to go out there and play. And if he can just get in the general vicinity of Charlie Jones, I think he'll be okay.
Pete, if my memory serves me correctly, and it occasionally does, in 1980, the Boilermakers were getting ready to start their season at Notre Dame, and Mark Herman suffered an injury in one of the last practices leading into that game. A guy named Scott Campbell came in and started a pretty good career that afternoon, even though Purdue lost the game.
You have a great memory. We're on the campus at the same time. But Scott Campbell's here, by the way. He lives in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and him and his wife are here. We threw together a reunion. We have about 50 guys back. But Scott was at our tailgate. Scott was a true freshman, 6 foot, maybe, 180 pounds, maybe. Mark Herman, preseason Heisman Trophy favorite. And we're playing Notre Dame, and it's the biggest game in the country, times 5. Yeah. And we got there, and Mark Herman hurt his thumb on Thursday. All week long, our coach said he'll be fine, he'll be fine. Right before kickoff, a couple hours before kickoff, we're on the field warming up, and they called me over, and the coaches surrounded us. They wanted to see if he could take a snap. He couldn't even hold the ball. Mm-hmm. So 18-year-old Scott Campbell found out he was going to start against Notre Dame on national TV. The only person on the team that played well. All the rest of us, we lost Herm, and we thought, how can we beat these guys without Mark Herman? Scott played extremely well. Yeah. Nobody else did. Yeah. Then we lost. Yeah. But it was next man up, like Kitch said. I'm excited. I'm disappointed, but only for this reason. I really am a big Aiden O'Connell fan. And Aiden is on track to smash every record for a single season. He's going to miss a game, so he's going to lose anywhere between 350 and 500 yards, which he would have done today. I still think he has a chance, but I wish he stayed healthy and could have played through that. But I am, like Kitch, I'm kind of excited to see what Austin can do. Yeah. And Alima, or whoever's out there. Right. Because Brom and both Broms are such great coaches when they coach quarterbacks. I don't think we're going to see a lot of drop-off. Yeah. I really don't.
Let us know, by the way, where you're watching tonight. The Boilermakers and the Owls, 7:30 kickoff. Still some tickets available. Beautiful night for football. It's going to be about 70 degrees at kickoff and hardly a cloud in the sky. So if you're thinking about it, come on in. Let's talk about the other part of this, Kitch. And you've been on some great wins and some really difficult losses. I can't remember a tougher loss than the one Purdue had last week against Syracuse.
You're right. I can't remember one that just fell completely apart like we saw. I've never seen one, been a part of one that just you take the lead and then just an implosion of epic proportions happens right after on the PAT and then in the ensuing plays. And I'll tell you, that's what I am also looking for, to see how this team bounces back, because they can go one of two ways. You know, you can really sulk on it and let it affect you, or you can come out and play really well. So I mean, I hope this team responds, but you know, we're the last 2 minutes of 2 games from being 3-0 right now and being ranked, and all is rosy, and it's just something special here. And that's why I was talking with some folks earlier. You know, I still think this is going to be a really good season. What's disappointing is I think it could have been one of those all-time great seasons that we've had here at Purdue, and we let 2 slip away, and especially last weekend at Syracuse. That one, I mean, that's just to give them, when you're up by 4 with 50 seconds to go, to give them a short field on that because of 2 penalties is just, I've never seen it happen before. I've never seen a complete mental breakdown like we saw.
Let's say hello to Carmel tonight, Richardson, Texas, Strasburg, Illinois, and Needville, Texas. So Texas and Austin, Texas. Texas is winning the straw poll here early on. Pete, if you look at the common denominators in Purdue's 2 losses, it doesn't take you long down the stat sheet. 22 penalties combined in those 2 losses to Penn State and Syracuse.
Penn State game didn't bother me a lot because they were earned. This is my 31st season doing the radio for Purdue. I don't think I've ever seen a game where the referees had more of an impact, other than when you and I were in Happy Valley.
Yes.
Like 10 years ago, it was the same thing. It seemed like every bad call that happened with Purdue, and everybody gets bad calls. But I will tell you a pet peeve I have with fans. And when you get on Knuckleheads, they said, hey, injuries are just an excuse. No, they're not. You know, when you lose 5, 6, 7 great players, that's not an excuse. It's a reality. And when they say referees don't, it ends up being equal at the end. No, it doesn't. It does a lot of times. This game was when you look at those penalties, when you look back and you review the tape, we had 2 interceptions that should have been interceptions. We had a couple of calls where we were 3rd and whatever, and they didn't give it to us, and they were horrible spots. And at the end of that game, you never, ever see. Payne Durham did nothing wrong. Now, if he would have, when the guy got in his face and he could have just turned around and ran off the field, kids don't do that. Never should have been called. You never called on the sidelines. That game was a joke the way they officiated it, which, as long as I don't mention the name of the officials, I won't get fired. But it was very frustrating. 31 years, I've seen 2 games where the officials determined the outcome. That game and the Penn State game in Happy Valley.
You mentioned Payne Durham, Kitch. We were waiting for Payne Durham to kind of make his reemergence here in 2022. Big two touchdown catches last week, and he was a big part of the offense. And you have to believe that, especially without Aiden tonight, he becomes an even bigger part of the offense.
Oh, has to. And to kind of go off Pete's a little bit, but I'm not going to harp on the refs. But what I am going to say is how impressed I am with Payne Durham. He made a mistake. And I watched the press conference right after. He didn't try to go away from the press conference. He didn't try to shirk or blame anybody else. He took it on his shoulders. He said, I got called for something that they thought I did, and he took full responsibility. Aiden was standing. It was one of those where Aiden was standing right beside him. He had his arm around, like, we love you. You know, it was one of those cool moments for me, to where I saw a kid have a really adult moment, right? And he could have went one way or the other, and I'm so impressed. I think this will be for him as he grows up to be a man, an adult, and he is a man, but as he grows up to be an adult and after playing sports, it's going to be kind of a defining moment for him to know, hey, you know, I owned up to it. And I'm super impressed with Payne Durham, and you know, for him to have a great game and then just for it all to come down to that at the end is really frustrating, because it kind of diminishes what he did on the field. But I expect him to come out and you're right, have a huge impact, because we got to have that second guy with Charlie Jones to be a weapon out there, and he's got to be the guy.
Jim wants to know what the score is. It's 0-0, Jim. We haven't started yet. 7:30 will be the kickoff. But thanks for checking in. We really do appreciate it.
I wish we'd have scored already.
We also, on our Facebook Live, and I will say, we have something called Behind the Mic, where you can watch on Purdue Athletics. We get a comment every week, can you turn the cameras around so we can watch the game? No, we can't. You can see us. We're contracted to be able to do that, but we cannot turn the cameras around. So it's just a chance for you to see a little bit behind the scenes. Hopefully you do that, maybe with the TV sound off, sync up your TV, and you can watch that way.
Frankly, why would anyone rather watch the game than us? I mean, look at us.
From your words.
You should have to pay big bucks to watch that.
Huddleston, Virginia, beautiful. San Diego, California, and Fort Wayne checking in as well.
That's beautiful. Fort Wayne's pretty beautiful, too.
It is this time of the year. Absolutely.
Mike Augustiniak, fullback for Purdue.
Leo.
1979. He's here this weekend
yep.
for a reunion
Leo
from
Lions.
Leo
Lions.
Devin, speaking of running backs, Devin Mockabee has scored a couple of touchdowns.
Yes, he has.
The more we see of Devin Mockabee, the more we like of Devin Mockabee.
What's kind of interesting about Jeff Brom is Jeff Brom, of all the coaches I've ever known, he tells you what he's thinking. And this past spring, he mentioned Mockabee a couple of times. And in preseason camp, he mentioned Mockabee. So I fully expected Mockabee. When Jeff Brom's first year, when he first came here, and he kept talking after spring about our defense is fine. I like our defense. And we all laughed because we saw the defense before he was here. And he was absolutely right. The defense was fine. If you listen to Jeff Brom, he'll tell you what he's thinking. So Mockabee was no surprise to me because they were talking a lot about him. Mm-hmm. And his teammates were talking about him. He is not disappointed. He's a real deal.
Let's see. On the defensive side, Kitch, let's talk about a couple of guys that I think probably need to step up tonight. This is a team that can run the football. They're averaging right now 221 yards running and 250 yards passing per game. Branson Dean and Lawrence Johnson become pretty key people. They've got to plug up the middle of this line tonight.
Yeah, and they've got to do that early. I know that we've been still rotating inside. There's a couple of guys that didn't play last week that were lower down the depth chart, but we're still getting minutes to give those guys rest. And but they're going to have to play more downs, I think, and they really do need to, those A gap, B gap runs. They've got to make sure that those are shut down and make them bounce and make them go to the sideline and not allow them to gash them inside. And you're absolutely correct. We'd like to see those guys. I mean, I think everybody likes to see sacks and different things. What I want to see is just nothing there's no space in the middle, right? You just take up all that space in the middle so that running backs don't have any free way to go. So that's going to be big. And then allow, once they do come out there, that in the running game, the guy that's been as impressive to me in the running game coming downhill is Sanusi Kane. Mm-hmm. I mean, that guy is just a hitter. He's a football player. He's quickly becoming my favorite player on defense right now. I mean, I think I enjoy watching him as much as anybody on this Purdue team because it seems like he just loves the game. He loves the physical part of the game. And I that's my kind of guy on defense. I love watching Sanusi Kane.
Sanusi Kane is Purdue's leading tackler after 3 games, and hopefully he'll have a big night tonight. Let's talk a little bit, Pete, about Florida Atlantic and a little bit about the background of this program. This is a new program.
Yes,
Florida Atlantic didn't have a football team until 2001.
Right.
The guy that put the program together, they asked Howard Schnellenberger, the legendary coach who recruited Joe Namath to Alabama, was an assistant coach on the Miami Dolphins perfect team in '72, won a national championship at the University of Miami. They asked him basically to put together a football program. And when it was time to pick the coach, they said, well, Howard, who should we pick? And he said, well, me. And so he coached the team for 11 years. And Howard Schnellenberger was a pretty darn good football coach.
Yeah, and a big influence for Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom's got a relationship with Howard, coached with him, and he's one of those legends of college football, pro football. He's just one of those guys when you talk football, his name comes up. It's a great program. It's located in Paradise. They literally promote it as Paradise. They get done with practice. They walk down the beach and go surfing. They get a lot of transfers, not as many as Purdue because we've gotten 26, but they've got a lot of transfers. A lot of guys are in the 2 deeps that are very, very good athletes. They remind me a lot of Syracuse. They remind me of Syracuse had a lot of great athletes. They had a running back that was a Heisman Trophy candidate, or still is, had 1,400 yards. Purdue shut him down. They had a quarterback that was Syracuse had a quarterback completing 75% of his passes. He completed less than 50%. Purdue's got a good defense. I don't think people realize how good Purdue is this year. because we're 1-2, so nobody's paying attention. But I was watching a show the other day, and they were interviewing some NFL draft guru, and they said, who is nobody talking about that they should be? And he did not hesitate. Said Aiden O'Connell. And I know Aiden's not playing today, but Aiden O'Connell. He goes, he's the best pure passer in this class. Purdue is so far into the radar because of our record. I fully anticipate their defense to do extremely well, shut down these guys like they haven't been shut down yet. And I think we're going to be fine whoever's the quarterback. So I think it's going to be a good day.
Couple things here. Florida Atlantic has scored touchdowns on 3 of its first 4 opening drives this year. So you're going to have to adjust to the speed. The reason I bring up speed, they have 114 players on their roster. 81 come from the state of Florida. 17 more come from Georgia. So only 16 players on their whole roster that aren't from either Florida or Georgia. Kitch, we know those are 2 states that are absolute hotbeds of football and 2 states that are known to produce players with a lot of speed.
Well, when Joe Tiller came here in 1997, that was one of his things was I'm going to go to Florida and get some speed. And he got Vinny Sutherland and a lot of guys, Chris James. There's a lot of guys that came out of Florida. And, yeah, we know that there's speed down there. They're very, very, I mean, that they train for football year-round. They're football states, both of them, and they take it very seriously from a young age, and they're football crazy. So you know that's just, they're going to have good players come out of there. And sometimes, there's a lot of, since there's so many players, you got a lot of really, really good players that are under the radar. They may be the 4th, 5th best guy on their team, but the 1st, 2nd, 3rd are going to Alabama and Georgia and all those others, and you get some of those guys that, since you're in that area and you're recruiting it really hard, you can get some really good players out of Florida.
The starting quarterback for Florida Atlantic is Nkosi Perry. He's a transfer from the University of Miami, started several games there. He has 54 career touchdown passes, and they've got 2 running backs that like to split the duty. Larry McCammon, who's averaging more than 7 yards a carry this year. Zuberi Mobley, who's a redshirt freshman, and then a guy to watch out for, number 5, Johnny Ford. He's only 5'5", 175 pounds, but they'll run him on a lot of reverses and jet sweeps. He's a transfer from South Florida, and he had almost 2,000 all-purpose yards for USF when he was there. And Pete, he's somebody that Purdue's going to have to watch out for coming around the edge tonight.
They're going to score. They're going to get their yards. I think we will score more, and we'll get our yards. But very, very good athletes. They got a coach, Willie Taggart, that knows what he's doing. His son is one of their top receivers. They're a sound, good football program, but Purdue's heavily favored for a reason. Their record against Big Ten is 0 for everything. They're not at that level. They got great athletes. They got a lot of kids at different positions, but position by position, Purdue should dominate the game. We're missing, in my opinion, the greatest quarterback in the country this year. He's not going to play. We still should win comfortably.
Got a question on here. Somebody wants to know when King Daru will be back. Don't expect him back tonight. He's out with a calf injury. We'll see how long he's on the sidelines. And again, we expect to see Dylan Downing and Devin Mockabee, probably a little bit of Kobe Lewis tonight as well. So
yeah, and you might see Tyrone Tracy in the backfield as well.
Absolutely.
And he's going to line up back here, and we're going to try to get the ball in his hands.
That's my impact player for offense is Tracy.
So you don't want me to take him first and we make sure?
Yeah.
All right.
So whose turn is tonight to go first? It's
I think Pete.
Well, I just did.
Pete.
All right. Okay.
I already went first.
Well, that's all right. We're a couple minutes away from that yet, but we'll make sure that we get you.
I have a feeling he's going to have a monster game.
I like it.
We want to get the crowd into the game early tonight because you know that 7:30, homecoming, lots of parties. People are going to be pretty jacked up when they come to Ross-Ade Stadium tonight.
Yes, they are.
I've been on campus about all day, and they've been out early, and I'm hoping that they went home and took a nap. A lot of the students.
Rally time,
because they were out at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't out at 6 o'clock in the morning, but
you heard that.
I heard that they were, and they've been getting after it all day. So I think that you'll see a great crowd tonight. I think with the weather the way it is here, it's absolutely perfect. The students, our student section has just been phenomenal. I mean, this is the best I've seen our students show out for games and as loud as that I can remember, and I expect nothing less. And that's something that
forever.
Yeah, and that's something that is it can be an impact in the game for sure.
Tim, I will send you and Kitch a video that Susan and I had my wife and I had a tea time today at 9:40. We're driving through. We stayed at the Hampton Inn on the Levee. we went by the neon cactus, and literally at 8 o'clock in the morning, it was a line. And Susan went by and videotaped these kids. I'll send you the videotape. This crowd's going to be stoked, and I think that's going to help the team a lot, coming over a hangover of losing a game they know they should have won.
Well, everybody celebrate safely tonight. Make sure you have a designated driver if you're going to go out this evening. Fast starts are going to be important. Purdue has outscored its opponents 30-3 in the first quarter. Florida Atlantic has outscored its opponents 41-17. So we mentioned that they've scored their opening drive 3 or 4 times. You're going to, again, sometimes it's hard. You can try to simulate that speed in practice, but sometimes you can't.
No, you can't. And I think what it's going to come down to, I think both teams are going to be really fast. I mean, we got really good athletes out there. It's going to come down to the lines too. And I think when we have a program like Florida Atlantic, you know, the line that they're recruiting a lot of athletes, but sometimes it's hard to get those great big physical guys that are also really, really athletic. There's only so many of those in the country.
Like the Kitchels and the Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, there's not very many of them like us.
Right.
But so it's, you know, you got to go out and find those. I think Purdue's got a lot more of those guys. And it's going to be, I think that's what it's going to come down to, is just who's going to control the line of scrimmage, you know, on both sides of the ball. And between the tackles, what we can do between the tackles.
All right, give me some picks tonight. Tyrone Tracy, is that your guy on offense?
It is. Every week they say we got to get him the ball more. He's a dynamic player. They're figuring it out. I think a quarterback change might make it easier because Aiden has such a great relationship with Charlie that maybe this might be the day that he's going to focus a little bit more on Tracy. On defense, I'm going to go with, I think, the most undersung, and Kitch mentioned this about 20 minutes ago, how important it was to control the middle of the line. I'm going with Lawrence Johnson. And when you look at his stats, you think, gosh, you know, he hasn't really, I think he has 4 tackles, but he just plugs up the middle of the line, allows the linebacker, that's his job, and he does his job really well. I think if he has a great game, which I think he will, I think we win easily today. We'll stop the running game.
And I'm gonna go because I talked about this guy earlier, how impressed I was with him as a person. I want Payne Durham to have a great game. I want him to continue to get better. Like I said, I think it really, really bothered him that he felt like he was a source of us losing that game, and I want him to be able to come out and really have a great game to kind of get over that, because I don't want that to hang with him for a while. And so I'm hopeful that he can really be an impactful player on offense today. And then I'm going to stick with my guy. It's our leading tackler. It's my favorite guy to watch on our defense because he flies around. He loves the game of football, and he just loves to hit. And that's Snoosy King.
You guys are awfully hospitable. You're going to leave me Charlie Jones?
Yeah.
I'm going to take Charlie Jones.
Why?
I'm going to take.
What
I'm going to
has
take
he done?
the Big Ten's leading
What has he
receiver,
done so far?
and the guy who's second in the nation in receiving yards per
Yes.
game. I'm going to take Charlie Jones tonight. So thank you both for that.
You're welcome.
Corey Trice. About time Corey Trice has a really big play defensively and maybe a game changer. You know, we've called a couple pick sixes. Maybe tonight's a night for a pick six for Corey Trice. We've seen 2 this year from other players, so maybe tonight's the night. Again, great night for football. If you're thinking about it, come on out. It's going to be a perfect night here at Ross-Ade Stadium, and you don't get to see this team very often at home until the month of November. We only have 1 home game coming up in October, so 3 of the next 4 on the road after this one. So come on out. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a safe and happy and joyous homecoming weekend, and let's try to get a win tonight. Boiler up, everybody.
Boiler up.